Hi everyone, my name is Geoff Brighty and I'd like to welcome you to probably the last Before I start to introduce our guest in a moment, just really want to thank all the partners that have really helped to make this campaign week go so well. In particular, ADEX, who've been absolutely fantastic with their platforms to get our webinars out to as many people as they have, but also the British High Commission, Plastic Oceans and Mura Technologies as the core partners in making this whole programme come to life. It's an absolute personal thrill to be hosting this webinar with someone who I think can only be described as a legend in the underwater filmmaking and storytelling world. Juan Romero, welcome, Juan.
Thank you, Geoff. A little too much, but hello, everybody.
I've not even started yet. Just to let sure that everybody knows, and I use the words who we're dealing with here. So Juan may be known to some of you, but if you haven't known Juan, you would have almost certainly seen a lot of his work either on the big screen, the small screen, maybe on your smartphone. So Juan is a marine biologist and a film producer and director of underwater documentaries. After completing his studies in marine biology in France, he began his career with Captain Jacques-Yves Cousteau aboard the Calypso, which takes me back to my childhood and watching television as a budding marine biologist, and including some amazing expeditions to Indonesia and Borneo, prior to joining the so-called flying team for the Cousteau Society. Juan continued his career with RAI, that's the Italian television broadcaster, with the series Linear Blue, as director and presenter. Throughout his career, he's worked with productions such as Blue Planet, Planet Earth, Predators, British Isles, and the National History Unit for the BBC. But it's not just about the film and the storytelling. He's also put a lot of time and effort into marine conservation as a marine biologist, which I know is one of his core passions, and really importantly, a science communicator. And I know this session we're going to have now is very much about his take on what he's seen, both as a filmmaker and as a scientist. And in 2019, he became CEO of a new marine conservation foundation based in Spain called Azul Marino. Hopefully I've got that pronunciation right.
Spanish. You got it right.
So just to get us really going, I mean, this is going to be an absolute treat as Juan takes us through a whole range of attributes of his career. What's changed, what's the same, what's ahead, from technology, from the places he's been to, from the people he's worked with, the personalities, and kind of what keeps him going forward. Because I guess Juan, your job is never going to be done, but you have to enthuse and empower people to take on the baton that you've been holding for a good number of years. But I'm going to ask you, for the man who is known as being a scuba legend and has been part of scuba history and underwater filmmaking history, look at the current times and COVID and on lockdown, and kind of just take us into kind of what have you been doing since the lockdowns happened? And we know there's been some real tragedies in Spain. So how have you managed to keep yourself busy? Probably a bit of a caged tiger, I would imagine, wishing they were out doing diving in nice places. But how have you coped with COVID, and then kind of really what's got you going in all this this underwater fun?
Yeah, I could cope quite well, Geoff. Thanks for the introduction. As you know, I was filming, I had a shoot in South Africa and Mozambique in the beginning of the year. When the cops started moving around, then for family reasons, I went home to New Zealand, and I decided to come back to Spain because I have something pending at work. And then they locked us down. My family in New Zealand, me here. And apart the fact I couldn't be in the water every day, most what I like to do, I had the chance to have a special premise to go to the water. Not diving, but I was just move around. The rest is not much, I guess, very productive. When you think about the amount of time when you're doing filming or research, you are locked in a boat or in a remote area. You don't have TV, you just read your book, and you organize your days from when you wake up in the morning and until you go to sleep at night. Yeah, the lockdown, it makes me crazy going around the house 15 times. I calculated 20 times was 1K. And some days I did 30Ks around the house. But that was in between my hours that I was editing, I was writing. As you know, I was working with Joe Roxon a lot in Plastic Oceans. The new foundation that is becoming alive, those 3 months was just all about that. The sad part being away from the family, the number is no more than 3 weeks, it's been 3 months. But again, psychologically and personally, quite happy.
So you're keeping yourself busy. You did say that you've been able to get in the water a little bit. You've been given special permission to go and dip your toes in the water. So what diving have you been doing under lockdown then? I'm sure you'll make many people very jealous at this point.
I'm very lucky. I was very lucky living in a beautiful part of Spain for now. I can look at the ocean from the house. I have a small swimming pool. In February, I got my wetsuit and got in the swimming pool. And we have an area we want to regenerate. It's called the marine forest next to the water. And I've been going a lot, taking pictures, thinking about new ideas. The rest is to say, when you're on an expedition, you spend a month or 3 weeks. Some days you're all day in the water. Some days, as happened not too long ago in Mozambique, for 3 days raining. Well, you sit and you clean your cameras, you write, you go through videos. So the secret is to have an schema program during your day, and you know what time you're gonna eat and what time you're gonna go to bed. Next day to the next day.
Yeah. So you set a routine and you keep yourself busy and occupied. So it's a great lesson. We've heard the similar thing from Paul Rose at the beginning of the week when he was, quote, in lockdown in a blizzard and couldn't do very much. But there's always something to do, or knock ice off a boat or whatever. So, I mean, you're going to take us through an absolute delight in terms of your history and what your take is on underwater filming and so on. But I mean, how did this all start for you? Where's your passion for the ocean come from? What keeps you going?
Several things. I was lucky. I mean, my dad was in the UN, so I was born in Venezuela, and we had the water an hour from home. And probably I was 6 years old. My grandfather gave me a mask when I came to holidays in Spain. I went to the Med, and I was fascinated to look at sunfish. And I started looking at Cousteau, Sir David Attenborough. Natural history was my passion. I wanted to be a photographer, and my dad said, no, you better study a real career. So I went for marine science. I have to confess, I'm not a scientist. I did marine science, I got to my PhD, but my passion was, I wanted to be those crazy guys in Calypso and Cousteau days. They were jumping in submarines, in helicopters, in boats. That was the lifestyle I wanted, not to study the fish. I relate to study fish, but and I enjoy it. But my passion is to be up there. And over the years, that dream became true, and I decided that the way I should share that. So it became to the science communication through films. For many years in public aquariums, consulting or directing public aquariums. As a matter of fact, in the UK, I was director of the National Marine Aquarium in Plymouth for several years, who led me to the BBC. In Italy was the same case. So everything I can do to communicate science or conservation, mostly related to the oceans, of course.
So you're going to take us through this little adventure of underwater filming. So I'll let you do your share screen and then start taking us through your amazing slides.
Okay, let's try to do this properly. Okay, I took the liberty to change from the title a little bit from Cousteau to BBC. And I'm going to go through many years before that, but I'm going to start with the last one. This is today. This is what a diver, filmmaker, in extremes looks like. We're talking about rebreathers, mix of gases, long time under the water. This shot is from David Richard in the Deadly Catch. Is one of the big series now in TV. So this is where we were in these days. But let's go back a few years before. I think it's not changing. Why pictures don't change? Let's see. There we go. We can go into the imaginations of human beings. I mean, we've been fascinated by the water and what is under. Imagining these days is like 1200s when they thought about how we put somebody in a barrel to see what is under the water. I'm going to jump from centuries to centuries because we don't have much time, but this is where we start. I mean, that curiosity, the what is under the water, apart the food that brings us. Then we go to 1500. I have the first dive suit. This is Leonardo da Vinci. I believe it never was used, but the ideas were there. We're talking about somehow regulator double hose, certainly leads in both sides to keep the weight. There are several models of this. One beautiful one is in Monaco Oceanographic Museum. And it's amazing what this man came out with, that curiosity not only to fly, but also to go under the ocean. I'm sorry, I dropped my mouse. Over the years, we dream of all these things. We have the Hanley bell, the treble bell in the 1700s. They never really worked. They were just an idea. The principle was there, how to get no compressed air, but a bubble of air in a bell, in a barrel, and see how we can walk under the water. Again, this ended up always in trials, in models. I believe a lot of people drown. More to 1700s, that will be the original nude suit from Phil Nude. I mean, that was wood. Obviously, this never worked either. So the brains were working. That was that strong curiosity and a will to go under the water. I keep jumping in time. Then we go to beginning of the 1800s. Then we get more sophisticated. They did some trials with some devices that they were not really suitable, but they managed to do some water. At the time became more work. Let's try to go to the port to recuperate materials or to do some fixings of the boats. It's not until the mid 1800s that we get the scaphandre. Okay, that's real the beginning for us as divers and as filmmakers or photographers. For the ones that are listening, I'm sure if you're listening, it's because you like diving. We're talking about copper helmets, very, very heavy, leather suits. Their shoes were lead, very, very heavy, and the air was supplied by a boat in the surface. Again, this was mostly for work until one day this gentleman, Auguste Bouton, French gentleman, filmmaker, decided to build a housing. Okay, we're talking about 1899. This housing was a photographic housing, even if he was photographer as a filmmaker. After several trials, he had a big problem was lighting. So he came with a device that I don't have a picture, unfortunately, because it was that day only one picture was taken, more than a century ago, was how I gonna illuminate the subject. And he came up with a barrel with weights. If you see a little pipe inside, provide the air, the oxygen for the candle. His air supply was from the surface, and that take us to what it was the first ever underwater photography, 1899, by Buñuel in France. So
looks like
to me, everything is. Sorry.
That looks like one of mine.
Well, many of ours. Think about it. So eventually, this is the real first underwater photography we ever take. It's in a museum in Paris. We're still in France. Go many years later. People keep trying. This is one of my idols of this movie making industry. I mean, he was a filmmaker for big, at the time, 1930, big screen pictures. Jean Pain. But he also, by this time, people start going spearfishing. Little devices to go under the water before the regulator, as we know today, they were existent. So Jean Pain decided to build a housing also. He wanted to do a film in seahorses. And eventually he managed to do it. Very short film, 3 minutes, of seahorses in the Bay of Marseille. You can see the dive gear here is very, I don't think he could go too deep with that mask. I don't know what device he had in the back, but certainly was a full free flow regulator. So this is Jean Pain again, one of the beginners. I'm sure that in other parts of the world, but France was a pioneer in that. What is interesting in this picture, the same housing, but a few years later, we can see his tank right? The tank goes with a hose straight to the mask. And the way to provide air with one hand, you have to open your valve and breathe and close your valve. So this is really the beginning of a mix of diving and filmmaking until we get to Geoff Cousteau. Okay, this is one of the original pictures before the Rebreather. Captain Cousteau was very much into his spear hunting, snorkeling, if you could call it at the time, a seaman. He was a Navy officer. And he started playing with the little toys. He had the chance at the time. And in this case, you can see better the dive tank. They have a valve, and you can open your valve and close your valve in order to breathe to a tube that gets to your mask. That got Cousteau thinking, how can we do this where we have a device that allow me to, at the moment my body requests air, it will release the air. That was the regulator later. That was created with the three musketeers, Captain Cousteau, Tallès, and Dumas. People say, oh, Cousteau designed, no, Cousteau was a genius in putting people together. And that's what he managed to do. He got these two good friends of him. The friends, they went snorkeling, spear hunting, and they came up with that idea of building a regulator, as the name says, regulate the amount of air you breathe, but inhaling. And at the moment you're inhaling, it stops. So he came in with the first regulator with the Mistral Gagnon. You can see it perfectly, it's only one stage in the back. The rest is the hose straight to the mouth. Dive tanks at the time, they were steel. They had different ways of setting up the tanks. But the interesting of these pictures is here we're jumping into cinema again. Some things that people ask me, is Cousteau was a marine biologist? No. Was an oceanographer? Yes, by love, like me. He was a filmmaker? Yes. He was an artist. He was a communicator. And at this time, when he managed to get his rig set up, he can spend time and have free hands to dive, they decide to build a housing. In this case, it's a small housing for, at the time, was 7.5 millimeters. The curiosity of this picture is the small tank in the back is because in order to keep the housing dry, they pump air in. So it was a positive pressure. So they have to constantly to have with a gauge, making sure that there was air inside. The camera was hauled like a gun because that's what came out at the time. How can we hold the camera in the gun? Here's a picture design that where you have the gauge for the positive air pressure. In the right hand, you have the two handles a gun to go under the water. Obviously, it was no viewfinder, no way to know your light for the diaphragm. It was only distance, what you could put together. And this stayed for many, many years until I would say not too long ago, the 70s, 80s. Cousteau in the first trials in cave diving with cameras. It's an homage to put these pictures. One of the original pictures is before he became the Jacques Cousteau we know as a co-designer of the regulator, as an adventurer and a filmmaker. I'm going to accelerate. I have a lot of pictures. This is a grab from one of the Cousteau movies. At the time, they didn't know. The ocean was, nobody knew what was under there. So a grouper was a grouper. Let's shoot him. Let's eat him. And that obviously over the years changed mentalities. And today, since God keeps changing, it's not that anymore. First films in the Red Sea. Until 1957, he published a book, The Silent World. The Silent World, famous worldwide, mostly because from the book it came film. And it's the first time probably the world saw the underwater world in the big screen. With a famous picture that came in the book. There was Captain Cousteau with his wife Simone and his two sons at the time. This is 57. Why it was so impressive? Because Cousteau was an artist, first of all, to me. He was a genius of communication. In the Silent World film that you look at today, and even I laugh when I look at it, what they use and the way they talk. Like, why would you use flares under the water? But to him was a way to attract the public, the view of the public, to these Argonauts that he used to call, these astronauts under the water. So everything was about the look. Then he decided, let's go into the look of the Argonaut, not in space, but with silver suits. Today, divers, do you know why would you need a silver suit? Why do you need a silver regulator and silver gloves? But it looks good on the camera. Okay, in the cameras at the time, it was very, very good. Small comment here. You can see the mask here, the mask we used to wear a while ago. I keep using to put our fingers in our nose. I mentioned that into another picture. I'm going to make another comment talking about cinematography. His companion of his life, excellent photographer, passed away a few years ago, Albert Falcó. He was one of these pioneers, not only in the diving and the filmmaking. I wanted to pick his picture as homage. But we cannot forget that there are many other filmmakers and photographers around. You have Cousteau in 1957. He first prize of Cannes, an Oscar. He showed the world that the underwater world is beautiful. Why? Because he was a genius in selling and marketing. He just produced films that people really wanted to see. But cannot take away that you have people like Han Haas. Han Haas was a marine biologist, an amazing scientist, and a fantastic filmmaker and photographer. Han Haas and his wife Lottie had probably at the time the best photographic record, film record of the Red Sea. His films were really good, but they were natural history. So in 1957, natural history was not interesting. Today it is. And what Cousteau used to do, that was the showcase, today is disappearing, and we're going more into the natural history. In parallel, 2-3 years later, we're talking about these two gentlemen, different parts of the world, different ways of thinking. We get into the TV. And I don't know if somebody will recognize this picture. Lloyd Bridges. This is also the end of 1950s. You asked me before, this is one of my beginnings. Being a kid, 5-6 years old, and look at my hero every afternoon at 4 o'clock after school in the States. There was this gentleman that was the hero. He will go dive, black and white. He will go diving and rescue people, play with the dolphins, and always use a knife. And if you can see, no BCD, nothing. And it was just a very good cinematography, but it was Hollywood. Get to the 70s, Cousteau again, he needs more. He needs to get that sort of wall of silence expanded. And he created the Cousteau Society. What Cousteau Society allows him is to get his boat, the famous Calypso, turned into a filmmaking machine. In my time and prior to my time, there were 2 films that they made, a year made. Here, the technology is much better. It's the same technology as the Sea Hunt. Back to the mask, bring back to the conversation. You can see it's a full face mask almost. When already existed the mask where you can stick your fingers to decompress. The reason of this is, again, Cousteau being the artist, wanted in the films the face of the divers be seen. So we have to suffer to simply to be in the film. Another curiosity of this picture is the cameras. Here, this again 70s, homemade housings, cameras inside. They were high reflex boards, dismantled and put together in a different shape, where we're allowed with these cases, these housings, that the only control you had was your iris and your distance, and no monitor, of course. So you have to point the camera, calculate with the camera, depending on the lens. You have to think, whoa, what I'm looking at, thinking about the distance changing with the lens under the water. And the only instrument really we had, that was the photometer, that is the round piece in the top, to change your iris depending of the light. And here you can see a little better. The 2 cylinders, one obviously is the camera, the housing. Under is the battery for the little light that is in the top. Situations like this, when you're very close, distance is really hard to calculate. So they used to go and they used to, even in my time, we used to do it like that. If you want to do a macro, you put a ruler and hold your camera against the rocks. This is the second life of Cousteau. Let's go around the wall. Let's show the underwater world. How are we going to do it? Let's just have these Argonauts modern. So these big houses for the tanks, in the end, they were two single 8 cubes in the back, radio, light. Cousteau itself was part of the team. How we did that with Calypso, the old lady. The old lady had all the toys possible. We have a helicopter. We had a submarine. The helicopter allowed to show the aerial views that they were mixed with the water photography, animals in the surface. So it went from under the water to show the real world. The trick here was a team. Was not anymore showing as Han has the animal and the behavior of the animal. He was mixing that with air, machinery like submarines and helicopters and people, because in every film you had a team. And that's probably what convinced me when I was a kid. That's what I want to do. I want to be one of those guys in the helicopter, in the submarine, never stopping. It's another sort of picture of the submarine going back to filming. That tube, black tube in the top is a camera. And the only thing you could do is trigger on and off. There were 16, sometimes really 35 mils. You have no more controls in this. You have to calculate with the sub, the speed of your sub, where you're filming. So to me, I mean, this is my time now. These guys were pioneers. In this case, the sub have two cameras, one in the bottom. Then he could control the distance, but not the diaphragm. And you have constant light coming from the sub. This is my time. This is beginning of the 80s. In the right, we have Didier Moreau, maybe one of the best well-known underwater cameramen ever exist and is still going. And Cousteau in his left. Curiosity of this picture, I keep jumping between filming and diving. Didier has the normal double hose regulator, and Cousteau has it, but it has in front. Okay, this dive device has no problem. A little default is in the first 10, 15 meters is hard to breathe. Not hard, but difficult. After that, with the pressure, it's a pleasure to breathe it. And Cousteau had problems, didn't like it. I mean, it's almost 80 years old. So we modified in a way it was a first stage of the hose, always going back to his double hose regulator. Here's another picture. That's me probably 30 years ago, 30 kilos less.
Surely not, Juan.
Again, to put this one is Didier again. In the camera he's holding in his hand. You have the knob, the round knob, that will be your distance. And obviously in the top again, many photographers today will remember that we use this photometer in the famous Nikon cameras because they didn't have that photometer inside, so we had to buy it and put it in top. So that was just a picture to show a little bit. Another secret of the filmmaking at the time was the lighting. Lighting, nobody else had the possibility as Cousteau did, again, because Cousteau had the boat. So in this picture, we can see the cameraman, excuse me, with a light holder. I'm sure it's another one in the left that we cannot see in the picture. And behind, probably me, one of my colleagues, holding the cables. It was really hard work because you have to carry this cable not only in distance, but also in depth. So if you dive in at 70 meters and you have 70 meters going up, but then you have the currents pushing you and moving away, you probably carry 150 meters cable. But the secret was the lighting. The lighting, Cousteau knew from the beginning, as we all know in cinema, top side is the light. And they put a lot of effort into get this light working properly. In the top and the surface, there was a Zodiac with a generator producing this light all the time. And we used a slave to carry these cables under the water. Here's again, this is where we used to move, again, 30 kilos thinner, the typical camera again. And again, this is not too long ago. This is film. It must be 1988.
Yeah, and I guess that's the point, isn't it? You're talking about using film. I mean, that's the thought that this is the one shot that you've got with the film and the focal length and everything must be, so exacting for you. So I guess that's it. You just have to be really confident that you've got what you wanted, and I guess then there's processing time too, isn't there? The film goes off, and then you've got to wait 3 months until you can see what then comes back. But
exactly, this is my early days. I was no cameraman here. There was Didier, and my left is Roberto Rinaldi, fantastic filmmaker these days. The rolls of film, you had 11 minutes. That's what you had. And so you have the opportunity in natural history to pick up behavior or something, but you don't know what you have until you get out of the water, pack it, get to port, send it by plane to Paris, waiting to develop the film, and then you get a telefax at the time saying it's good or not good. And even if it was no good, the boat by then was 1,000 miles away somewhere else. So we shoot a lot. Always thinking about what will happen if this don't come out. And Cousteau was a genius that it was not a script. It's not like you spend, we did sometimes spend months in one place, but Cousteau will get all this footage, and what he had in hand, he will create a story. And here's 88 before, and nothing really changed for a long time. We jump into Blue Planet 1. What slightly changed in that time? That we went to the Betacam, we went to the mini little cameras, all in tapes. To me, the big difference, if we're talking about technique, was you coming from having 11 minutes of a roll of film to have 90 minutes tape. That's great, but also when you get back home after 2 months, you have 20 hours to look at it, right? So I jump into Blue Planet. Why? Because Blue Planet, I got in the end of it when I moved to England, and I was lucky to be part of the team. Blue Planet at that time was filmed in film. Now, the difference is that the technology used was we had monitors, okay, and a fast reaction, was well prepared, was not a boat, would be a place, typical BBC, be for a long time in one place and repeat the location several times until the shot was done. And then mix Blue Planet because just after was Planet Earth, where it was part, and Planet Earth 1 had 2 chapters under the water, okay? We were looking for something very precise, and that was the bait balls that we learned from Blue Planet. So we tried to repeat from Blue Planet some of the images that we thought we were short. And back to what I'm saying of the time and location, we didn't get the 2 programs of Blue Planet into the last two months of production after 4 years because we couldn't get what we got. But luckily, we did. Difference again for the old day and the new days. Blue Planet, deep diving submarines, very quality cameras, always in film, a lot of lighting, go into very deep areas, find strangers, animals. By now, marine biology, oceanography is much more advanced than the 1950s of Costeau. And even that way, new species can appear in. And new species mean a new part of the script for the film. Situations that we knew about it, but never were filmed before. This is an example of a penguin jumping in Antarctica. A typical day at the airport, you know, and you have 2-3 teams, and you have agents who run clear customs for you. And this is with film, so they have more material because the film. But when you go on location in a place, you cannot say, "Oh, I broke this." You have to now. They can't go to town. You are there. You have to work what you have. Amazing team of people, amazing professionals. From all over the world. So I was very proud to be part of the 2, mostly Planet Earth, the second one. Now, if we go a little bit into why all this, in the first Blue Planet, Planet Earth, Sir David Attenborough, producers, directors, wanted to show the beauty as never seen before. And that's what we did, the beauty of the oceans, technically through cinematography, the music. And if we jump at days like today, and it's the anecdote, as you know, Joe Ruxon suggested at the time to do plastic, and the answer was no. We don't want to show anything ugly. it's funny that you look at today the new programs, Blue Planet 2, Planet Earth 2, Oceans. They're completely different. We're showing the beauty, but also the destruction. So, and that's something we did at the time. They wanted the beauty. We learned a lot in Blue Planet. This picture is not a joke. It's producer Andy Byett, produced the Blue Planet and Planet Earth one. This is days and days. When you ask me about the COVID-19, well, you can be in an air conditioner at home, or you can be spending days and days this way, because what we do is we look for bait balls in order to be bait balls, large schooling fish with tuna and other animals. We look for birds. We follow the birds, jump in the water, come out of the water. So it's a constant in out of the water. You cannot swim fast. It goes for 1 minute, max 2 minutes. So we do is just wait and take turns. This Doug Anderson, cameraman of the BBC, this is in the Middle East somewhere. That was his turn to wait. And at the moment we see some birds and some diving, there will be a bait ball. Everybody jump in the water and try to grab that image. That was incredible. This image is Mexico, and Ibayer was in Mexico doing Planet Earth. On the same day, the last day of the shoot, he got this amazing footage of sailfish in a bait ball. And in the same day, completely in a different location, northern Venezuela, we got with the team, the whale shark feeding vertically. 2 images that make the 2 programs. Cameras, again, this is Planet Earth. We have much better monitors. We have lenses, we have controls, electronic controls and manual controls of everything. I may go into the rebreathers later. We knew the locations from Blue Planet. New locations came on board. We took the time, and the gear was just completely amazing. But this is not too long ago when you look at the gear today. Okay, this is already BBC accepting digital. So all the footage was done in digital. But even at the monitor, you can see Doug in this, so it's me, I don't know, putting the eye very close to the monitor. There was not that big things we have today. This is from a different shoot for Planet Earth, I think it was Venezuela. It was a transition. So we have the big camera that is a digital camera. So BBC is accepting that. But anyway, we had a little digital mini DV, the famous Amphibico, but also the black camera is a 35mm film camera. For the old guys, it was hard for us to jump. And it was fantastic, but we have to have the 35. And eventually most of the footage came from the 35. Back into the beginning, the positive and negative pressure. Over the years, we learned that it's better to have negative pressure. So better to inject air, let's create a vacuum in the housing. And this case is what's happening here. We have the little aspirator that is vacuum in the air. The controls you see in the left, we tried everything to be manual these days. You don't want electronics. Mostly if you're on an expedition that you don't have no access to a lot of workshops or an electrician, basically. You want everything to be manual. Another mix that came into it, I'll go back to my first picture in the origin, rebreathers. What divers look like these days. So we're into digital. We know very much, we had a conversation the other day about what's going on any part of the ocean at the moment. We can go to a location. We have a digital camera, allows a lot of shooting. And the new generation is the rebreather. Rebreather allows us to stay longer in the water, warm, because we're breathing the same air that we're exhaling. Mostly the secret is no bubbles. So approach to a subject, not scaring animals, is just it's a plus. It's another picture of a rebreather. The technology keeps changing. Here, really, we're talking about the dream of Cousteau or the Argonauts. When you dive with 3 computers, your computer is inserted in your mask and stay under the water long time. And I finish with this picture that this is the future today. I don't know what's going to happen when the new generation start filming under the water. It'll be interesting. It's not all about the gear you have, the reason you're doing it and why you're doing it.
Yeah. Juan, that was an incredible just canter through so many things that are so relevant to the underwater filming world. But I said partway through your slides about that photograph looks like one that I would take, and I genuinely meant that. But with all the gear that is now available within the reach of many divers, in principle, anybody can take, let's say spend $1,000 and get underwater and start filming. But I imagine it's not quite as simple as that in terms of how you get the right shot. Just take us through the mindset before you enter the water about how you would go about getting the film storytelling that you're looking for.
Yeah, I think that yes, today, everybody, even the old days, everybody, if you have money in the old days, so today, if you have money, you can buy a red camera with a house and have a setup for 30, 40,000 euros or dollars, easy. And you're still not in the best of the line. But if you're not a good diver, and whatever you do is going to be AK, but it's great. But why are you filming it? And how are you filming it? What angle you're going to take? So I think that it's an art, and everybody can make on the water videos. But what people, they're the one to learn and they want to start to think about it. Why I'm doing this? Just to touch the trigger and have an image, or because and that's the old school too. When you're filming with film, you're editing in your head. You don't shoot it because it's pretty. You shoot it because it's pretty, but it's gonna link with another piece I did before, or I will try to do. I can put some together. In my case, is to give a message, a science education. So, but it also could be art. It's amazing filmmakers. They only do music and art under the water. But these guys also are looking at editing under the water when they're shooting. Back to the gear. I'm a strong believer that if you're a good diver first and your mind is setting what you want to do, you have your ideas clear, or we never have it clear, to tell you the truth, but you have a line you want to follow, you can start with a GoPro. You don't need that. These days, technology is amazing. Don't you think all the films you watch on TV on the big screen, they go to a Premiere Pro program that we change colors, we eternate the colors, and we give what we want. What happens is when you film in a simple camera that probably have 4K and very good images, you take to your computer at home and say, well, it's not the prettier ones. But if you put in an editing program and you start filtering the colors, you not only achieve what you saw diving, but you even multiply that by 10 with more amazing colors. It's like Photoshop. I'm not saying that we Photoshop the films, but we color correct.
And in relation to the what people view your filming on, I mean, you've done everything from the very biggest screens, the cinematic experiences, to TV documentaries. You mentioned Cousteau, obviously, who's been as an anchor in television in the 70s and so on. But of course, people are now consuming stuff on little mobile phones. You can't see my blue screen, but it is that. Yep. So how are you adjusting for the small formats now, the 1 minute, the 2 minute little films on Twitter and Instagram? Are you filming with those audience in mind to some extent now?
No, I don't do that. I have people now in the new foundation. I have a young lad that is very into the technology and these things. So ideal for Instagram. You don't edit it, you just get the shot and send it. I'm doing a small clip of 3-4 minutes, education for schools. And I like to play, it's not Photoshop, it's the wrong way to say it. I like to bring the real color back. I don't exaggerate the color. But even with any Apple or Windows program editing, you will have color correction. So when you have a nice deep blue when you dive in and you vision it, and it's not anymore that light blue, you play with that color correction to bring it to what you saw. So it's real. And regarding the gear to a phone, you mentioned, I know the one of the red cameras, they just came out with a phone that can film in 6K. But back to the answer to a lot of people, when you want to, if you're not a professional, want to with the big screen, even there, 6K, 4K, most of the TVs people have at home and computers is still 2K. Yeah. So you can do all the 6K you want. The technology has advanced a lot in the way of filming, but reproducing stay behind. I'll give you a small anecdote. We did the shoot in Mozambique a few months ago, and it was hard work because you're in and out of the boat constantly following a pod of dolphins. And you're with the dolphins 30 seconds, 1 minute, maybe longer, jump out, go to another pod. If you have 20, 30 kilos camera, your day's gone. By the time you hand your camera, your dolphins are gone. So we had a couple good DSLR cameras, 4K, and I had this little gadget, a lens I put into the GoPro. And believe it or not, after the shoot, we came back, the best of the water footage came from the little GoPro with a wide lens, 4K, and it's going for broadcasting. So
it's good for us all then that we can actually get great footage using something. I mean, a lot of people listening to this webinar will have GoPros, will be familiar with them. So that's very much within their grasp.
Yeah, well, this is the little trick of the trade. I mean, you have the GoPro. We know in distortions in the corners. There's a company, Japanese company called Inon, is INON, that produce these wide angles. Don't ask me why physically, why a wide angle will reduce the wide angle of the GoPro, but allows you to approach very close to the subject and eliminates the distortions in the corners. So eventually you have a full frame 4K video coming out of a little GoPro. Now downfall, a nice big camera gives you stability. So you can move around with a big camera. A phone, a GoPro is vibration. So I have a rig that I put in my GoPro. So it feels heavy and I put lights on it. And for a lot of works like this one, let's say dolphins, whales, I like my GoPro.
You're not lugging 25 kilos of camera, and I can see why you like that.
And that's the other down.
Yeah, we're coming to the end of our time, very sadly, and I'm just if anybody's got any questions, please post them quickly on the Facebook live page. But just I'm just asking you to go back and can you just pick one particular highlight that was the most important for you, or the one that you look back on and just go, that was the time where I felt I was living the dream. When was that in your career? What were you doing? Where were you? What were you looking at that you go, that still gives you goosebumps now?
You know what? It's a funny answer I'm gonna give you. Every day. I just walk. I have lucky enough that we opened the office of the foundation, a walking distance from my house by the water, and I have a team of 7, 8, not kids, much younger than me, young guys and girls, and walking there in my shorts and my jungles, and walking in and say, hello, my life. And I know that in 2 hours I'm going in a boat and I can jump in the water. I may not see a whale, I may not see a dolphin, but that sensation that I'm free to be in the water and I'm working with people passionate as I am. Yeah, I can tell you, I've been with humpback whales, I've been with great whites. I mean, that's what these people want to hear. But the truth is, every time I'm out, and that's what probably brings me to the Costeau days when I was a kid, dreaming. I want to be one of those guys. No, I'm biologist, not even a filmmaker. I want to be up there. I want to test it in my own skin, and that's every day of my life what I love.
And what, in terms of, we talked about storytelling, and obviously a lot of the films you've been involved with, Blue Planet, are telling stories about the ocean, about a particular species, a particular environment, or whatever. So, from what's the sort of the stories that interest you right now? What's the particularly, I know Blue Hope, we've talked a lot this week about some of the challenges of the ocean. Obviously plastic pollution is central to that, and obviously the Timor-Leste Blue Hope spot announcement from Sylvia Earle's mission has been fantastic as well. But from the storyteller inside you, what do you think are the things that are going to get you into your next dive, so to speak?
My next style, and we're working now, and I believe that it's nice. Documentaries are nice. Natural history is nice. It's fantastic. But I'm very convinced, in my case, that a film these days, a documentary, is not a film, it's a movement. And I can go back again to our dear Jo Roxon. She did Plastic Ocean. It's informative, but it's not like you watch it once and you forget about it. Or just, how pretty the picture was. 7, 8 years later, we're still using this film to move audiences. So I want to make films that in 5, 10 years, somebody can pick it up and say, hey guys, we have to pay attention to this. At the same time, showing the beauty. I mean, you talk about Timor-Leste, what amazing place for whales. You make a film of whales, or you make a film that takes all the area of the Coral Triangle that was there last year, and it's fantastic. It's just, you have to take that message out, not stay with the picture. That's my case.
Okay, we've got one question that's just come through,
Yeah.
and then I think we'll have to draw our chat to a close. And it's from Alison, and she's asked, where was your favourite ocean filming location and why?
Back to, if you talk about ocean, and it's a mix of wildlife and people, it will be the Pacific. The South Pacific is my passion. Lucky enough, spend a lot of time in the South Pacific. Obviously, I live in New Zealand most of the time. That's my place. But again, every time, as before, what is my highlight in my career? People say the Met is nothing in the Met. Every time I go diving in the Met, I find something interesting. That sensation to be free under the water. You can put me in any place with this water, I'm happy. Not talking to anybody, nobody talks to me. Give me a camera, I'm happier. But I think the Pacific is to me. I mean, I was in the Coral Triangle last year for almost a month's expedition, organized by Sylvia Earle, by the way. And I was fascinated being there after 30 years that I was with Cousteau. And I love it, but I love the Red Sea. I love the Great Barrier. You know, I love the Med. I love diving in the Arctic. It's just every place have something to give you.
Well, on that lovely sort of moment you've given us in terms of, you know, anywhere on this blue planet, there is only one ocean. It's just all connected. We have to look after the whole thing, and so anywhere you go is kind of what excites you. Juan, it's been an absolute privilege to have this conversation with you. I hope everybody watching in has enjoyed it as half as much as I've enjoyed it. It's been an absolute blast. Continue doing what you do so well, continue enjoying it. Wish you health and happiness in your career going forward, and to look forward to seeing your films for many, many years. The ones you make will last as long as the rest of us do on whatever screen we watch them on. But for everybody who's watching in the webinar, Juan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Geoff.
Wish you all the very best.
Thank you to Real Hope. Thanks to Alex, to all of you, Alison, to being behind and so work. And let's keep working together. It's a beautiful ocean.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Juan, and goodbye, everybody. Take care.